Hey guys, Lise here from Hustle and Groove, where we talk about all things side hustle, email marketing, and productivity related. So today I want to show you how I am super productive and the tool that I use to do that. So you will have heard me talk about Trello a number of times, but now I want to show you how to use the latest power up that Trello has acquired called Butler for Trello. So I've been using Butler for Trello for a little while. It was originally created as a bot, which meant that it had its own little board hanging or list hanging out over here, and you would set up a whole bunch of different tasks for it to automate. Trello acquired Butler for Trello late last year, so late 2018. And since then have created it as a power-up versus an actual bot. So for this to work, you will need to have either the gold version of Trello or sacrifice your calendar power-up and use the Butler power-up instead. So all I mean by that is if you have a free Trello account, then you have the option to only ever have one power-up added. So you can see all the different power-ups are added, are set up here, and then it will tell you if you've got something enabled or not. So I often always enable the calendar power-up all the time because then it allows you to view your board in calendar view. So if that is something that you're wanting to have, then that's what you would do. You can actually get around this by setting up your Trello board on your own Google Calendar. And I will link to the video where I talk about that below. But today I'm showing you the power up using the Butler for Trello power up. So I'm just going to come back up here to featured. This board, I haven't enabled it yet. I want to show you how to set everything up from scratch. So just follow along. So the first thing you want to do is click on add, and you'll see that it comes up over here. I'm just going to close that, and I'm going to close that. So now to see that power up in action, you'll see that the calendar power up is there and Butler is now. So when you first load Butler, it has to load for the first time, particularly if you haven't used it. Now, the way that the Butler for Trello power up works is that it basically automates a whole bunch of things on your board based on a few different areas. So the main area that I will be hanging out is in rules, but it makes sense to check out these things. So card buttons are based on things that you do regularly. So if there are recurring things that you need to have happen, all those sorts of things, Butler can come in and recommend some options for you, or you can create something. So it's something that you are doing the most often. So if this is your first time using Butler, then you probably don't need to worry about it. But in about a month's time, I would come back and see if there is a button that can automate all the things that you're doing. So you can choose to do recommended for you. So it's going to go and assess what I've been doing. And now it's giving me a whole bunch of different options. So it's saying that in the last 10 days, I've performed this task here twice. Then it's saying that all of these options here have been performed. So I could choose to set these all up now, but I'm going to move straight on to board buttons. So this is where you can choose to sort your cards by due date, title, age, all of those types of things, by labels, depending on the way that you set that up. Or you can move cards around. It does a whole bunch of things. So card buttons and board buttons are specific to your board. So if you already have an idea of the automations that you just want to just do with one button, then card buttons and board buttons are a good option. Again, I would probably avoid using these two until you've used your board for about a month and you've used all these rules, then allow Butler to come in and make those recommendations for you. So we are going to be hanging out in rules, calendar, and due date. So the great thing about Butler is that it's based on commands, and you get to set up what those commands look like. Now it's automatically pulling in commands from another board that I have that I could easily just choose to enable if I wanted to. But I don't need to do that except before, when the due date is marked as complete in a card, it will move it to the top of the list on completed. I am going to enable that. Now, if you're not sure what that looks like, I'm just going to click on the edit so you can see how this was built. So basically, all of your triggers are down here. So you'll see that to create a rule, you need a trigger and then you need an action. You can add as many triggers and as many actions as you want into one rule based on all these different options below. So this one here is about moving or copying cards to a list, that type of thing. Then you have the option to add labels or add a link or remove a due date. Then you have the option to mark something as complete, set a due date now, all of these sorts of options. Then this is about adding checklist. This one is about adding a subscriber. If you want to add more descriptions or a comment, change the subject, all of those types of things. So there are no custom fields which you could create on your own, but that's advanced. And then you can also do sorting, and then you can also add in more card mirroring. But you are basically going to hang out across these main options here. These last three are advanced and probably not something you need to worry about right now. So in order to set this trigger up, when the due date is marked as complete in a card, then I would have gone into here and set that up. So I will build something so you can see it, but just basically that's how it is done. So I'm just going to hit save, update all boards. And now I'm going to create a rule from scratch. So you will see this option, but normally if it was brand new for you, you would just see the add rule option. So I'm going to click on add a rule. So you'll see that it has all the trigger options. I've turned on advanced so that I can choose to add to a board or a list that is outside of this board. So if I wanted to pull something in from another board, then I can do that. If you don't want to see that, you can just simply turn it off and you'll see it changes that it's now just specific to this board. By default, I just want the advanced on just so that I always have that option. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, because this is my overall calendar board, I'm now going to set a few things up to automate things. So right now, I have a rule set up on my other boards. So my 90-day plan, my marketing plan, my content workflow, those boards all have the following rule set up that says when a card is due 30 days or more, it is copied to the future list in this board. So let me just close Butler. So this option here is when something is due 30 days in the future or 30 days from now, it is copied into this area here. So right now I actually don't have anything hanging out here because I actually don't have anything that far in advance. Now I could choose to also pull in things directly into these two areas, but I want it to just sit here because then I'm going to get things to move into these two areas based on what is happening here. So this is what I mean by that. So if I open Butler again, and I'm going to go straight to rules, and I'm going to click on add a rule. So the first rule that I'm going to do is 7 days before a card is due, I want it to be moved to the list tasks for this week. Now, a big tip on this, whenever you're creating a rule, make sure that everything is typed in, if you're typing something in, exactly as it appears. Now, you shouldn't need to do this because it will automatically bring it in, but for whatever reason, if it doesn't, then at least you know that that's what you've got to do. So 7 days before. So I'm going to jump over to when a card is added to the board. So this rule one here that I'm showing you is about card buttons and board buttons, and then you've got the calendar rule, and then you've got, so the calendar rule would be wherever you are setting up a recurring task, just like I've got this one here. And then this one is based on due date. So you'll see that I have got this one is set up on all of my other boards. So it says 30 days before a card is due, copy the card to the top of the list of future onboard calendar, hustle and groove. So that is already enabled on other boards. I don't need to enable it here, but what I do want to do is add a command. So that is going to be, so you may or may not see this option, but it's just saying that it's not retroactive. So anything that's existing won't be pulled in. It's only going to be applied to new cards or boards that are created from the moment the command is set up. So the first thing that I'm going to come down is I want to create a task or a command that talks about 7 days before a card is due. So this option here allows me to amend it. So wherever you see a white box, that means you can change that. So I'm going to put in 7 days before a card is due in list name future. So it gives you the option. I don't have to think about it. So you just need to make sure you hit the plus. So 7 days before a card is due, I'm going to hit the plus sign again. So that moves it up to here. I then want the card to be moved to the top of the list name, and that's going to be tasks for this week. And then I need to click on the plus. Now that's all that I need to do because everything else has happened already on the other boards, like adding a label, tagging in me as the member that it's assigned to, setting due dates, all of those sorts of things has already happened. So I don't need to think about that. So I'm just going to click save. And now that is now enabled. Now I also want to set one up for next week. So anything that is due next week. So that command is going to look very similar, but now it is going to be 14 days. 14 days before a card is due in the future list, so that still remains. Then I'm going to move it to the top of the next week list. And just make sure that you're always clicking on the plus sign so that it gets added up into the command. So as long as everything is up here, that should be correct. So those are the two things that are now saved. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to sort my tasks for the week at the beginning of the week by due date. So at the moment, what is happening is that when the due date becomes applicable, it is moved to the task for this week and it's moved to the top of the list. So they all just flow on top of each other, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be in order. So I want to set up one that just kind of reorganizes that. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to click on add a command on the calendar. So I want to say every Monday at 6 a.m. So I'm going to change that to 6 and I'm just going to make that 00. So every Monday at 6 a.m. I'm going to hit the plus. Now what do I want it to do? I want it to sort based on due date. So I'm going to come into here. So now I'm wanting to sort. So we are going to choose this option here, which gives us the option to sort by due date, ascending, descending. So sort the cards in list tasks for this week by due date, which is exactly what I want. And I want it by ascending so that the most recent or actually it should be descending so that the most urgent is at the top. So click plus. And that is all that I need to do for that. I'm going to click save. And then I'm also going to do that for the one for the future, or sorry, the next week ones as well. So every Monday at 6 a.m. I don't have to do that because it saves it. Sort the tasks for next week by due date, and I'm going to put ascending for this one so that I can see exactly what is coming up. And then I'm going to click save. So rules are generally for anything like adding a label, creating a new card, moving the card around. Your calendar is for anything reoccurring, and due date is based on something that is going to happen in the future or by a specific time. And then, like I said, you can come in and create board buttons and card buttons, which are based on rules, calendar, and due date. But you get the idea of why you would choose to do this initially, and then you can come in and allow Butler to assess your board and basically remove or override the rules, calendar, or due date commands that you've set up and just use one button to do all the things. So the last thing that I want to show you is that you can also pull in checklists or descriptions or comments or anything like that from an existing card. So you will see that on this calendar, I have a processes list, and within that I have a standing card that has these checklists set up. So this is a recurring thing that I want to have happen, and rather than move this along here, all I want to do is create a recurring task that then pulls in this checklist every time that card is created. So that might not make sense until I show you what I'm talking about. So remember, I am specifically talking about a recurring task, so that needs to be under calendar. So this is what I want it to do. I basically want to, every Thursday, have it create a new card that is going to pull in the checklist from that process card, which is the blogs to CK list, and then set the due date to be in one day. And I want to add in a member and all those sorts of things. So this is a bit of a advanced command that I'm setting up. So the first thing that I'm going to do is set it to every Thursday. So I'm going to change it to Thursday, and I'm also going to set the time to be 8 a.m. So I'm going to just put in 8 a.m. Now remember, whenever you fill in this, make sure you click the plus sign so that shows up here. Otherwise, you're actually not setting up a command. So that is the first part of that. So now I want to create a new card. So that's the very first option here. Create a new card with the title, add blogs to CK. And then I'm going to say it's going to be added to the list tasks for this week. And then there are a few other options. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is add the member. So that is going to be Sonia, who is my VA. And then I want it to pull in that checklist. Now that will depend on what you've got here, but this is add the checklist. So choose the checklist name. Now I kept it simple and it is just called checklist. Checklist to the card. So we need to choose where it's pulling it from. No, not that one. So remember, you need to have this already created, otherwise it won't create it. So you need to know what the name of the checklist is, and I've just kept it normal, and it's going to say checklist from card, and then you need to start typing in the card, blogs to CK list. Now this is where you will need to make sure you're typing in exactly how you've titled that particular card. And then once you've got everything else in there and it all looks good, I'm going to also add a due date and set due date to be in 1 day. And I'm not going to particularly set a time. I'm just going to set that and hit plus, and then hit plus here. So now it should read, every Thursday at 8 a.m. create a new card with the title add blogs to CK in list task for this week, and add the checklist from the card blogs to CK list to the card, and add member Sonia Aitchison to the card and set due in 1 day. Click save. And so now this will happen this week. So that's basically how you can use Butler for Trello as a power-up. The best way to learn is to simply drop in here and just try it out. You will love how amazing it is. There are, like I said, a whole bunch of different options, and it will assess based on how often you use this. So you could also just come in and just use your Trello board for a week and then allow Butler to give you some recommendations. So it'll recommend a whole bunch of things based on the common things that you're doing. So you could choose to do that as well, and then you don't even have to worry about doing all these types of things. Either way, come in, try it out, and let me know if you have any issues or what your favorite Butler for Trello command option is. And I will see you in the next video.